I'd like to welcome everyone to the second meeting of the House Transportation Committee for this session. I would ask that the members and guests, as always, please silence your cell phones. I would also remind those in the audience that all of our presentations and amendments considered today's meeting have been posted to the meeting materials tab on the committee's web page for this meeting. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Representative Blanton.
Present.
Representative Branscombe. Representative Bridges. Representative Camuel.
Here.
Representative Elliott. Representative Fleming.
Present.
Representative Hale.
Present.
Representative Heverin.
Present.
Representative Herron.
Here.
Representative Hodgson.
Here.
Representative Huff.
Here.
Representative Imes.
Here.
Representative Lewis.
Here.
Representative McCool.
Here.
Representative Mosier.
Here.
Representative Neighbors.
Here.
Representative Palumbo.
Here.
Representative Roberts.
Here.
Representative Smith. Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Here.
Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Upchurch.
Present.
Representative Wesley.
Here.
Representative Williams.
Here.
Chairman Dixon.
Here. It appears we have a quorum and present and are duly constituted to do business. A copy of the minutes from our meeting on January 23rd is in the members' folders. If there are no edits or corrections, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Minutes are adopted. Do the members have any guests that they would like to introduce? Seeing none. The first item on our agenda today is House Bill 192, the sponsor, Chairman Blanton, an act relating to highway work zones and making appropriation therefore. Chairman Blanton, will you please identify yourselves and your guests for the record? And the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. John Blanton, I'm the state representative in the 92nd District, and I will allow the gentlemen with me to introduce themselves.
Bill Bell, Executive Director, the Office of Highway Safety.
Jason Sawala, Deputy State Highway Engineer, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
And I will point out that Secretary Gray, along with Deputy Secretary Hancock, are here with us today, and we certainly appreciate them being here. The bill I bring before you does have a committee sub. If I could go ahead and get that adopted before I begin the explanation.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor of the committee sub say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Committee sub is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
this is not a new bill to members of the committee. If you were here last year, this was brought to my attention about 4 years ago, I guess, or 5, when I had a neighbor boy at 22 years of age that was working as a highway contractor in a work zone and was hit by a vehicle and lost his life at the age of 22, a young man by the name of Jared Helton. That is one story of many, and I could have brought many family members up to tell you their stories to play on your sympathy today, but I'm here rather to present you facts and something that we believe can help not only prevent deaths but injuries in our work zones throughout the Commonwealth. This bill deals with installing what's known as speed cameras in work zones in the Commonwealth. This is a pilot project that would run through 27 and would have to report back to this committee the results thereof. It would require the Transportation Cabinet or someone they contract with to install these cameras in our work zones. Not all of them, obviously that's not affordable, but as many as they would deem necessary. It would require that there be signage put in place that these cameras are there, and you may be ticketed if you're speeding in this work zone. There would also be a grace, if you will, of 10 miles an hour over. A camera would then take a photograph of the rear of your vehicle. It would be required to take 2 photographs of the vehicle and the license plate from the rear. Then there would be a human that would actually look through print off and send out a citation. The citation would not be a typical citation that you currently receive from a trooper or police officer that goes through district court. It would be a civil penalty. Therefore, it doesn't go against your driving record, and it does not include court costs, which is generally the biggest cost in the citation of $150 thereabouts. The initial fine would be $75. If you have any additional violations within 3 years, it would be $125. There is an appeal process in place in this piece of legislation for someone who would like to appeal the results or question. It also requires that the cameras be equipped with radar detections that has to be calibrated periodically to ensure its accuracy. 26 states currently has these in work zones, and the success rates have been very, very successful in slowing people down. Let me be very clear. I'm not interested in issuing citations. I'm interested in slowing people down in work zones to protect not just the workers, but quite frankly, to protect other people traveling through these work zones. We've all been through them. They get narrow, they switch lanes. There's a reason that we need to slow down. And I'm using the fact of protecting people's lives. And I'm going to turn it over to Bill here in just a second. He's going to go through some data so that you understand what I'm talking about. But I want to talk about one other quick provision. There's also a provision in this bill that says that this information cannot be shared, it can only be used for these purposes, and that it can only be retained for 6 months and then it has to be destroyed. So it cannot be passed on to others. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill. He's got some data he would like to share with you all.
Thank you, Chairman. One thing we looked at is the data in Kentucky, and then we also looked at a couple other states and the success that they had with these cameras, these speed cameras. For the last 5 years, we've had 49 deaths in work zones in total, and 7 of those were workers, either KYTC employees or contract employees or contractors. And so that's obviously our number one goal, overriding goal, is preventing any fatalities or serious injuries in work zones, as well as on our highways, period. So we looked at Pennsylvania because their law is very similar to the bill presented today. And so you look at pre and post implementation of these speed cameras. The 4 years pre-activation, they had 81 deaths in their work zones. After activation for 4 years, same time period, 57 fatalities. For their worker fatalities, the 4 years preceding, they had 29 fatalities of their employees or contractors, compared with 1 after activation of these speed cameras. And so I've spoken with Pennsylvania. I've received this information directly from them. Also, they post it. They have to present an annual report every year on these speed cameras and this activation. And so they have plenty of signage. They have cameras at the beginning of the work zone and towards the end of the work zone. And they also have the regular posted speed limits. Let's say it's 55, but they also have signage that says, there will be speed cameras, and by the way, it's an active work zone. And so the contractor that they've hired for these speed cameras, they're in charge of activating these work zones, these cameras.
And one of the things I would also point out that this legislation does is that these citations can only be issued during times when there are actual one or more construction workers in the work zone itself. So if you're traveling through on a weekend, nobody's working in that work zone, then these citations would not be issued. Jason, you got anything you want to add?
I think to the chairman's point, I mean, from the transportation cabinet's perspective, just like Bill mentioned from the Office of Highway Safety, our goal is whether you're just passing through as a traveler, or if you're coming to work every day in that work zone, either for us or as a contractor, we want to make sure that everybody makes it home safely, and that the folks that are there working diligently to make improvements on these routes are able to make it home at night to their family. And so just thankful to the chairman for having us up here today.
And I believe Secretary Gray may have a comment.
Is this on? Okay, there we go. I just want to thank the chairman and those who are supporting this bill. I've had this job for 4 years and a little bit longer. And Bill Bell's shop, his office, puts a daily report together of fatalities and serious injuries. And we get that report every day. One of the things that I think we all need to think about is that these accidents, these crashes, are occurring more frequently. That's why we're urging this so vigorously, so strongly, urging this action so strongly. What is it? Well, there's more traffic, more trucks. There are more drivers. There are more distracted drivers. We know this. There is more work going on our roads. Maintenance work. This is a fact today. It's going to continue. And when you think, like Chairman Blanton talked a minute ago about the constraints of these work zones, it's just a shame that we're not creating the kind of vigorous environment where people are thinking about slowing down. Because those barrier walls and the movement between lanes, it's not just the workers. That's a big deal. The threat to the workers, of course. Both the cabinet's employees, the contractor employees, but it's also the threats to the driving public as much almost as anything else. That's where the fatalities are occurring in work zones and crashes are occurring. So I just want to punctuate everything that's been said. The facts, the numbers that Bill presented on Pennsylvania are really compelling, very compelling, that they do illustrate then that these steps are having and making a difference. And that's a good thing. I want to thank everyone here for your public service. I try to remember to say that every time I speak to this to our committees, because you're here to do the job of protecting, in many respects, of protecting the public. And this is one of those opportunities. So, Chairman, thank you. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Gray. And, our goal in highway safety, and in my time with state police, I worked with highway safety and transportation on fatalities in general. And our goal was always zero, right? And we do everything we can. And I really believe to obtain zero in work zone fatalities is an obtainable goal. And this is one of those things that we can utilize to do just that. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm sure I've probably left out something that I should have said, but maybe somebody will get it with a question if we have any questions.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for the presentation. I do have a motion and a second, but we do have some questions to get to first. Representative Branscombe.
Thank you, and Chairman, thank you for the bill. One question I'm going to have you go back on your memory here. Is the main difference between this year's bill and last year's the data retention policy that's in the language?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, is there any other? One more question. Are there anything else that you know of?
No,
It's the only thing that I could see, but I just wanted to make sure.
no,
Okay, thank you.
no. And I will say that our road contractors association, asphalt association, they're all fully supportive of this piece of legislation.
Next question, Representative Roberts.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Blanton, thank you for bringing this good piece of legislation. I'm glad to see it back again. I have a couple questions for you, if I may. The first is specific to the bill. It does say in highway work zones. Do you know if this would also be implicated when there are inmate cleanup crews on the road or lawn mowing crews or anything along those lines?
No, ma'am, it would not.
Okay, I think that might be an opportunity for us in the future since obviously the work zones, we can view this, but I've watched people speed down 64. I'm sure no one in this room passed some of those cleanup crews before in a way that seems unsafe. Chairman, may I ask another question?
One more, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. One other place I think we might be able to strengthen this, and just something for public knowledge, is on page 2, subsection 4. It says the cabinet shall install signage in highway work zones notifying the public that the vehicle speed within the work zone may be enforced by an automated speed enforcement device. When we are fining citizens via a camera system, I think there should be some more notification. So I would love to see that maybe changed into something along the lines of actively enforcing or something along those lines, and perhaps also making this not just when there's a worker present, but at all times in all work zones, so that we are, because it's such a choke point, just really training people up to be even safer in those areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Hodgins.
Yes, Chairman Bland, I appreciate your efforts here, and I certainly support the effort to reduce fatalities in work zones. However, I have severe concerns about having a computer issue the ticket. As Representative Roberts spoke, the proliferation of this type of technology to every speeding situation, every red light, can happen at a tremendous pace. And if I read correctly on page 2 of your bill, it would take up to 14 days for the department to issue that citation to you. If you drove through a work zone on your way to town twice a day, you could accumulate $3,500 worth of fines before you realized that you had been issued a ticket, and then your car registration would be in jeopardy. My question is there a vendor involved in this, and do they get a percentage of that money? If I believe that creates a perverse incentive to issue more fines.
Now, when I spoke with Pennsylvania, the way they do that 14-day period is you cannot get another citation in that 14-day period when you have a chance to appeal it. So, in other words, you cannot accumulate a ticket or 2 tickets every day. And yes, they use a vendor. They send out a RFP, and they have a presentation from all these vendors. So,
Well, does that vendor get a percentage of the proceeds? Or are they just...
it's not a percentage of the proceeds. I don't believe it is. I can verify, but I think they're paid for their services, not a percentage of proceeds.
Okay, but there is nothing in the bill that says that we're limited to one violation inside that 14-day period. Correct?
There is nothing in the bill that limits that, although, I sometimes think we got to use common sense. If somebody gets 28 citations, that we're not going to send out 28 citations. Let me keep in mind, we keep talking about computers with citations. This requires the computer takes the picture and it's sent in, then a human actually has to download those pictures, print them off, look at them, and verify that, number one, that the plates are accurate to the vehicle. There's always that, and there's exceptions where somebody's license plate was stolen. So there are human eyes that sees this before they're ever sent out. So there is that ability to intervene when someone gets 28 citations because they're going back and forth to work. Jason?
Just one thing to add is that, not having a passed bill yet, we have obviously not issued KYTC like an RFP or anything to try and procure any of those types of services. And so those types of questions will be asked later. And I think that there are states that have both kind of a flat fee for implementation and one that's structured based on number of citations. Now, I will say that from the standpoint of the ones that are structured, at least what we had heard previously was the fact that because you're having a human being go through and look at those, that there's, there is some workload on behalf of, each and every one of those being reviewed. And so I don't know what the answer to that would be, going through that request for information and request for procurement process, or proposal process, but just for clarity.
Representative Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Chairman Blanton. I'm sitting behind the column up here in the hot seat, I guess, maybe. You and I have had a discussion about some of the concerns that I have, but since Pennsylvania has been brought up in the discussion, does Pennsylvania have signage that indicates whether or not a worker is in a highway zone that is flashing or demonstrating to the public driving through that it's an active area so that they would know?
Yes,
that
yes, they do. Yep.
And of course, that isn't in this bill, to install signage to show that here. Is that a possibility going forward that the Transportation Cabinet would install that additional signage that would show a work zone has a worker in it so that the motorist has another warning, I guess, that they need to slow down, that they could be ticketed?
Well, that's something that, as Jason mentioned, when we send out the RFP, I mean, we'd have to look at that. But, I mean, I think that's possible. Pennsylvania does that through their vendor. So their vendor actually marks whether it's active or not active.
Is there a reason why we wouldn't want motorists to know that?
I think motorists should know whether it's active or not active, and they should know what the posted speed limit is, and we need to definitely make it have enough signage so they're aware. Absolutely, right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Representative Mosier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this presentation, this bill. This is very informative, and I think it's needed. I like that it's a pilot, and we can work out the kinks as we need to. And I'm looking. I just have a quick question on page 5, where you talk about reporting. You ask for reporting of the number of fines and the revenue, but I don't see, since we're primarily concerned with the safety of our workers, I don't see a place, maybe I'm just missing it, where a number of accidents or injuries or deaths are reported, much like you listed the statistics for other states. Is there an opportunity to add that here so that we can know that we're making a difference?
Be glad to do so, and I think that is something that's important to have, and mainly just an oversight.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Representative Camuel.
Yes, thank you. May I ask a question?
You may.
Chairman Blanton, I think this is actually a really good bill, and it's one that I support. And I've just got a couple of questions. The first one is, after receiving this bill and through a little bit of research, it looks like some of the other pilot programs in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, and I think South Carolina just started one. Those pilot programs are extended to 5 years or beyond. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason in looking at this bill that we landed on 3 years for Kentucky? And would it make more sense to expand it to 5 more just so that we gather more data?
I mean, there isn't a scientific reason that we landed. It's an arbitrary number. We looked at 3 years. We felt like that would give us an opportunity to get some data, begin collecting. We see a pattern that it's working and so forth. And this committee, because it have to report back, could then take action either to extend the pilot or to decide to go forward with it as a permanent.
Okay.
So there was no scientific reason between 3 and 5.
Okay, thanks. May I ask one more?
You may.
Okay. And again, I do support this bill regardless of the outcome, because I've gotten probably 200 emails from people supporting it as well. But just to echo what Representative Roberts said, one question I had is, we may have 15 miles of a construction zone with concrete walls on one side and orange barrels on the other. So whether there's a worker present or not, it seems like the road conditions are less safe in that construction zone regardless. So do we have to have a requirement? Is it necessary to require there to be one worker present for this to go in, for enforcement to take place with speed? Because if the goal is to slow people down, eliminate accidents, and limit deaths, that's just my question. Like, does someone have to be present because we've got heavy equipment, barriers, things that make the road less safe just because they're there on the road?
Thank you. Very good question. I'm not in disagreement with you, but over the last 3 or 4 years, working with people trying to bring this thing to get to where we can move it forward, some compromises have had to be made to get enough support to get something in effect, and that is the result of that.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we got one more question and two more questions. Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Mine is just a brief question for clarification. You mentioned that there would be no ticketing during the times that that no one was on the work in the work zone. Will the cameras be turned off, or do we know how we will operate during that time? Will the cameras be removed? Will they be turned off, or will they still be taking information during that time, just not used for purposes of citations?
No, the cameras would not be operable during times when there are not workers in it. It would be, there's no need of gathering. We're not trying to gather information or data, so they would not be turned on during hours outside of work going on in the work zone.
Thank you. That's all.
And last question, Representative Heaven.
Thank you. I'm kind of hidden behind the pole. Chairman Blanton, thank you so much for bringing this bill up. This is something that's been very important to me since I got elected in 2019. It's something that my highway road contractors have been talking to me frequently, and I know this is a conversation we've had for several years. And so I thank you. I don't want us to forget, though, that we're having this conversation because people are being killed. This isn't just us trying to be big brother, and driving is a privilege. And with distracted driving, the person getting hit on the side of the road has just as much right as we do in the car. And I don't want what I'm saying to be taken out of context, but I don't want us to forget as a committee is that people are dying. Sons and daughters are getting killed because of someone being a distracted driver and going too fast and not following the rules. And so I appreciate that. And I look forward to voting yes on this bill in support of all the families that have lost loved ones, but also for the brothers and sisters that are being worked with. It's, any one of us that have worked with somebody that have lost a family member or someone that we work with closely, we can't forget that this is why we're bringing this bill up, is to save other lives and save future lives. So thank you, Chairman Blanton. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Having received a motion and a second on the bill, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Branscombe. Representative Bridges. Representative Camuel.
Yes.
Representative Elliott.
May I briefly explain my vote? I'm going to vote aye, but I do have some concerns related to as much information available to the motorist as possible. And so hopefully, if this does make it through the legislative process, whether by amendment or through the contractor that the cabinet ultimately works with, we can have signage that indicates whether a worker is present in a work zone. So thank you. Aye.
Representative Fleming.
Aye.
Representative Hale.
Yes.
Representative Heverin.
Yes.
Representative Herron.
Yes.
Representative Hodgson.
No.
Representative Huff.
Briefly explain my vote. I have a great deal of respect for the sponsor, and I have a great deal of respect for the intent of the bill. But I believe this single issue, I got more pushback on last year than any other issue, and I'm going to have to vote no.
Representative Imes.
Yes.
Representative Lewis. Aye. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Moser.
Yes.
Representative Neighbors.
Yes.
Representative Palumbo?
Yes.
Representative Roberts?
Yes, briefly explain my vote. I vote yes today. I would like to see this bill move forward. I do hope that there is a chance that we might be able to put some amendments on there to make this even stronger. But I also very much greatly appreciate the chairman's pragmatism. Sometimes perfect is the enemy of good enough, and perfect can be the enemy of what we can actually get done here. So with that in mind, I do hope we can carry on the conversation, and thank you again for bringing this.
Thank you.
Representative Smith? Yes. Representative Tackett Lafferty?
Yes.
Representative Thomas?
Aye.
Representative Upchurch?
Yes.
Representative Wesley?
Yes.
Representative Williams?
Yes.
Chairman Dixon?
Yes. House Bill 192 is reported with favorable expression with committee substitute attached thereof. Moving on to our next item on the agenda, Chairman Blanton, an act, House Bill 193, an act relating to motor vehicles in a highway work zone. Chairman Blanton, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, another bill dealing with work zone safety. Safety is a priority for me, right? And for all of our citizens. This one is a little bit different in that it does not include cameras, for those of you that have concern with cameras. But it also includes not just work zones on road projects. It also includes utility work zones of contractors that may be removing trees or whatever, and the signage is out that says this is a work zone you're entering into. And so what it does, it increases some penalties dealing with all of our work zones, requiring people to observe the signage, and if they don't, it increases the penalties if they're involved in an accident or they are charged with operating a vehicle unsafely, an accident, and failure to yield right of way of pedestrian that's working in it. And so what it does, it increases the penalty to $500 if there's no physical injury or death, and not less than $500 nor more than $10,000 if the violation results in physical injury or death to any person in that work zone. So if you're in violation of one of these in Chapter 189, 290, 580, 910, and 960, then if someone is injured or killed in it, then you could be fined up to potentially $10,000 in this work zone. What we see is oftentimes, whether it's our electrical companies, whether it's our cable companies, they have their signage out and they're working, and people tend to ignore that. And it often increases people's being unaware of the situation and leads to some of these accidents that we've talked about earlier. So this simply encompasses all of our workers that may be working in a project alongside our highways, and increases penalties for people who come through these in a reckless manner and they cause injury or death to someone.
I have a motion and a second on the bill. Does any member have a question? Representative Smith?
Yes. Representative Blanton, I'm sorry I hadn't read this one. But as of now, isn't there already an increase in double fines for a work zone? Do I remember seeing this when we have work on I-75? It says a double fine zone. Refresh my memory.
Yes, sir. A little bit different here.
Okay.
Those are still in place. It doesn't eliminate those. First of all, let's understand fineage for speeding in Kentucky. If you know anything about a fine in Kentucky for speeding, it's just a little over $1 per mile that you are over the speed limit. So let's say you're going 20 miles over, your fine's $40. It doubles your fine to $80. It's the court costs that get you in Kentucky, right? $150 for court costs. But that deals with work zones, as in highway constructors, contractors working on the roadway. This not only encompasses those work zones, but encompasses your utility workers when they're set up they're working on a pole directly above the roadway, and they've got their signage out, and you come through there in a reckless manner and you cause an injury, then you can be fined a hefty fine for causing injury or death. Or if you're cited by a law enforcement officer for careless driving, when you come through there, you could be assessed these penalties.
One more question, Mr. Chairman. So you're saying if I'm on a county road in the back road and there's a utility truck working on a pole, they have to have signage up before this comes into effect?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing no other questions, having a motion and a second on the bill, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Blanton.
Aye.
Representative Branscombe. Representative Bridges. Representative Camuel.
Yes.
Representative Elliott. Representative Fleming. Representative Hale. Representative Heverin. Representative Herron.
Yes.
Representative Hodgson.
Explain my vote. I'm going to vote yes on this, and I would encourage you to drop your other bill and do our enforcement with human beings like this bill calls for.
Representative
yes.
Huff.
Yes.
Representative Imes.
Yes.
Representative Lewis. Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Mosier.
Yes.
Representative Neighbors.
Yes.
Representative Palumbo.
Yes.
Representative Roberts. Representative Smith. Representative Tackett Lafferty. Representative Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Upchurch.
Yes.
Representative Wesley.
Yes.
Representative Williams.
Yes.
Chairman Dixon.
Yes. House Bill 193 is reported with favorable expression. Chairman Blanton, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
All right. House Concurrent Resolution 36, we are passing over on the agenda today. We're happy to open the floor and have a discussion. The last item on our agenda is a discussion in the implementation of KYTC's new Motor Vehicle Information System, KAVIS. I would like to note for the members that last week the Cabinet was giving a list of technical questions regarding specific issues that have come to light during the implementation. The Cabinet has responded to those answers, and those answers are in the members' folders and have also been posted to the Meeting Materials tab on the committee's webpage for this meeting. We have representatives from both KYTC and the County Clerks Association here. I would like to first call Heather Stroud from the Cabinet and Secretary Gray. If you'd please introduce yourselves.
Let me go first. Okay. Jim Gray, Secretary of Cabinet, KYTC.
Heather Stout, Executive Director of IT for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
Thank you. And you may proceed with your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good to be with you all again today. I'll give a little bit more introduction to Heather in a minute, but I'm certainly glad that she's up here with me as the subject matter expert and the leader of our Information Technology Office at the Cabinet. And I'll tell you a little bit later what a good job she does. We have talked about the launch of KAVIS a number of times over the years to different committees, even before my time. And we're glad to have a chance to update you on progress today. But before I talk about where we are and address some of the questions that you may have, I'll talk first about where we've been and provide some background. KAVIS, as many of you know, is a 45-year-old system, or replaces, rather, a 45-year-old system called AVIS, which is used primarily by the county clerks for motor and vessel-related transactions. AVIS rolled out in the 1970s, and that was a time, of course, when mainframes dominated the scene. Computers were large and expensive, and information was stored on floppy disks. As a mainframe legacy system, AVIS was difficult to support, difficult to maintain. It simply could not perform the functions of a 21st century enterprise, one that needs to work efficiently. For example, information was sorted by vehicles, not customers, making it difficult to get a comprehensive look at records tied to a specific owner. The system tied our hands when it came to expanding services and enhancements. Simple things like adding a field to collect email addresses to communicate with customers. That was a challenge. Because of the size and complexity of the project, introducing a new system, our team approached the project in phases, gradually rolling out KAVIS modules over the past 8 years, which have improved operations and efficiency. But it's been done over the last 8 years, since 2015. We implemented boat titling and registration, a standardized point-of-sale system, disabled placard improvements, print-on-demand decals, and new flat license plates. So introducing those features, of course, improved efficiency and also saved money. Today, we are here to focus on the recent rollout of KAVIS that moves all vehicle information to the new system and sunsets AVIS. Preparation for this push happened years ago, and training for clerks started last February. In November of 2023, we announced that a temporary shutdown would begin at the end of December 2023 with a short-term closure of county clerk offices in January. That would be needed to transfer some 250 million vehicle records from AVIS to KAVIS. So the team worked hard to keep the closure period as short as possible. We had to shut off AVIS and turn on KAVIS statewide. Why? Because vehicles get bought and sold across counties. So a phased county-by-county approach was challenging and problematic. The new system would not only introduce a more modern business solution, but it would allow for advancements to be implemented that would benefit customers, like getting to keep their license plate if they sold or trade a car, or introducing new special license plates for vehicle owners to support their favorite nonprofits. During the week of January 8th, counties gradually resumed in-person service using the new system. Now, we expected to encounter some system issues to a degree, of course, when we launched. Why is that? Well, it's normal when introducing a new system and taking it from a test environment into the real world. Some issues were identified as clerks processed the really almost endless combination of transactions. There were quick fixes, and some required more troubleshooting and time. We can all appreciate the challenges that the clerks and their staffs experienced. They serve on the front lines and have to deal with issues outside of their control. I'm thankful for their collaboration along the way and for their patience as we work through the obstacles and continue to address current issues. Now, we have been encouraged by some feedback. We know that there's been criticism as well. We acknowledge that. And in the spirit of continuous improvement, we certainly acknowledge it. But we appreciate the understanding. So we've had feedback like this to the KAVIS team. This is just reading from a clerk. Yesterday was our first go live, and each one of my staff members said at one point during the day, quote, "I can tell when we figure everything out that this new system is going to be so much better." They love the detail. They love how it step by steps you. They love the checks and reminders. Again, thank you and your team for your dedication and hard work. Union County and ultimately Kentucky will be better because of it. That's from the Union County clerk. And here's another one that came in just last week from Southeastern, from Pulaski. We could go on and on about the positives of KAVIS versus AVIS. We were in need of a change, and I'm thankful everyone has worked hard to get us one. We know, capital we know that with change it creates unknown issues, but that is how it can grow into a great success. So there is a team of problem solvers committed to working through bumps in the road. While there have been some issues, and there may be more encountered as we progress and proceed through the year, this team is beyond dedicated to the success of this system. One thing to note is that fixes usually occur at night after business hours to avoid further disruptions of the system. This team has been working long hours before and after the launch to execute the project and troubleshoot in real time. Now, we recognize the impact that issues have had on the public. We anticipated longer wait times after needing to close offices for at least the 5 business days while we transferred the files. We know the issues have caused some routine tasks to take longer than usual. That should change over time as we become more conversant with the process and with the system. We appreciate the patience and understanding as we work literally day and night to make things right, and we appreciate the patience of the clerk's staffs who are adjusting to a new system. I can assure everyone that the growing pains will be worth it. Leading the KAVIS charge is Heather Stout. She has displayed extraordinary leadership and dedication throughout this whole project. And I can tell you, I've been in the private sector, like many of you. I've been in the public sector. And Heather Stout is one of those special, talented people that anybody in the private sector would want working for them. She happens to be so dedicated to public service, just like the people on her team, that this is the place that she's chosen to work. And I appreciate that. So I will turn it over to Heather now to share more about the project and its current status.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, you guys have heard a lot about the background of KAVIS. I'm going to highlight a few other things, and then we'll move directly into some of the things we're seeing on the project. Fourth attempt at modernizing AVIS. 3 failed attempts prior to this one were through vendor-supported projects. They failed. We built this system in-house, built a team, are developing in Microsoft.net, and I'm very proud to say that we've done that. We developed it to produce a very consistent experience across all of the clerk's offices. And I think that in itself is causing some challenges. The final implementation of KAVIS, which we just went through, replaced all AVIS functionality. The only thing in the vehicle licensing realm that remains on the mainframe is the insurance system. As Jim pointed out, we have gone through multiple implementations over the past 8 years. I won't go through each of those as he already mentioned those, but we did finish all vehicles in January 2024. January 8th was day 1 of that implementation, and it was, of course, the most complex portion of all of those applications. Speaking of complex, arguably, this is the largest modernization in the state's history. I'm going to say that one more time. The largest technology modernization in the state's history. Impacts every single vehicle owner, and I'm sure many of you own more than one vehicle, or boat, or jet ski, or RV, or something like that. Every single vehicle owner and business that owns vehicles have all been impacted by this, but will also all benefit from this. Complete generational change for all county clerks and anyone who uses this application to the process and to the technology. It looks drastically different. It functions drastically different. The process change in itself is a monumental effort. As Secretary Gray announced, 250 million records. That's a lot of data to clean, transform from a vehicle to a customer-based system and load into a new application. 45 years of code. 45 years of code that has changed many, many, many times. Every single time a new statute gets proposed and passed, that code changes. Modernized for this. All vehicle and tax related legislation reviewed and incorporated into this new system. And of course, vast user base. We've heard from many of them, negative and positive, MVL, motor vehicle licensing, clerks, property valuation administrators, law enforcement, dealer commission, dealers, and the list goes on and on and on. DOR, of course. What we announced in the fall was the closure of clerk offices for some period of time. We also stated wait times will be extended. No question about it. There's a backlog of work just from the closure. There's also a learning curve. The process and procedures are changing across the board, and engagement from all of the offices was not the same. So some of the just wait times on trying to get answers to questions and things like that about process change, all the engagement was not the same. The counties who participated heavily, and we've got a few here that participated heavily in training, are seeing better results than those who didn't. System issues. Of course there's going to be system issues. I believe I said it would not be realistic to assume there won't be system issues. That doesn't take away from the fact that we hate that there are lines in some of the county clerk offices. Absolutely hate it. But we knew there were going to be issues, and we knew that that could happen. This is where we are in the current timeline, the stabilization. We're right smack in the middle of it, stabilizing and acclimating everyone to the new system. So I just wanted to make sure you were aware. That's the phase that we are in currently and are still working through. Now, some of the implementation details from Go Live. As of today, we are 16 business days from Go Live date on January 8th, but only 11 business days where we've had full participation of counties. Only 11. So it's very early in this project right now. The KAVIS team has been averaging 12 to 16 hour work days for all of January. Now, I'm not telling you that for sympathy because you guys probably work that during the session. I'm telling you that because I want you to understand the passion and dedication of this team is unmatched. There is no one that has more passion and dedication for the clerks, for their ability to utilize the system than this KAVIS team. What we've done during this last 16 days, we've constantly monitored the system for performance. We've made adjustments in real time. I'll get a text message from Tabitha that says, Tabitha Clemens, Grant County Clerk, that says system seems like it's running a little slow, and within 1 minute I have responses back from COT on whether or not they are seeing a problem. We have a very transparent and open conversation with them all day long on Microsoft Teams, and we have very real-time feedback, and we're very appreciative for their support on that. The KAVIS team members provided in-person technical assistance to some of the larger counties when we first went live. Jefferson, Kenton, Grant, I think we were in Grant, and a few other places had people in their office trying to help them as we were going through that incremental rollout phase. All day, every day, the team is responding to Microsoft Team chats. We have 4 different support groups set up, calls, emails. At this point, 90% of those are how do I questions. How do I do this? How do I get around this? How do I process this transaction? Some of those, of course, are issues with the system that are keeping them from being able to perform that transaction. And those are all things that we're continuing to fix and work on. So just to elaborate a little bit on the complexity of this system, just from a license plate perspective alone, because we have a lot of license plates in this state, special plates that can be personalized, motorcycle, we can go on and on. But there are 23,000 plate data points in this system because of proration, because of all the different laws and things that we have around fees and no fees and things like that. We've only had 6 reported issues out of all of those plate data points. That's amazing. I can't tell you enough how successful most of the transactions are in the system. So far, over 250,000 registration and title actions have occurred, and over 180,000 checkouts have happened in the shopping cart of KAVIS. So, to this point, we've replaced a 45-year-old legacy system that was very difficult to support. Many of the transactions are happening quickly, have faster transaction reporting with the intuitive interface. Web renewals, for instance. They can go work the queue, and we had a picture from Jefferson County that showed by 9 a.m. one morning they had processed 1,500 web renewal transactions, printed, stuffed them in the envelopes, and they were ready to be mailed out by 9 a.m. That's amazing. All of those had to be handled individually previously. This system supports more enhancements like keeping your plate or offering new special plates, extensive validations, and this is where I come back to consistency. Extensive validations and guardrails are in place so that you can't do something you should not be able to legally do in this system. That is causing some headaches. Things that were able to be done in Avis that we didn't even know were able to be done in Avis were being done in Avis. And they can't do it anymore. Now, nobody intended, they didn't want to do that to begin with, but the system allowed it. And nobody knew they shouldn't, right? But now it's a question. It's becoming, is this an issue? Do we have a system bug? But really it's no, that's actually the law and you can't do that. So there's a lot of learning going on in that area as well. The merging of customer records, it's a great benefit. It's also been a little bit of a delay for some of the clerks. We had we had competitions and all kinds of incentives to try to help them make sure to verify their customers throughout the past 6-7 years. Driver's license verify each of your customers, because when we go to merge those customer records together during that migration, if you've verified all their driver's licenses over the past 7 years, those are going to merge together much easier. The system will do it for you. If you don't do that, it's going to be a challenge when we go live, because you're going to have to manually merge those customers with a click of a button, but you still have to do a lot more review. Many counties, Anderson's one, was the winner of that competition. And they've had much fewer problems with customer merging. And those other counties who were also up on that list, I've asked them, how is the customer merge process? Because I'm hearing that's really slowing you guys down. And those who really process those driver's license verifications don't have those same issues. We're identifying uncollected revenue for the state. We're setting the stage for expanded services like address change online, electronic lien and titling that's coming soon, fleet management process improvement. This system had to happen for those things to happen. It improves the identification of fraudulent activity. I just talked with the Sheriff's Association last week, and they're seeing a lot more information coming to them about fraudulent activity because we're requiring identity with this application. It enables greatly improved data analysis and information. The amount of information that I can get out of this in a much faster way, it's wonderful, and you'll see that in the next slide. Montgomery County Clerk. They said, I talked with him yesterday, and he said, Avis was a Chevette, and KAVIS is a Corvette. Now, not all counties feel that way yet. Yet is the operative word. They will, and we're going to make sure that they do. So proof of progress. Everybody always likes data, right? Last year in January, the average daily collections by the clerks across the state was 5.3 million. On day 6 of full county participation, last Monday, day 6, we were collecting more than the average daily collections. Now, that's not apples to apples, right? We were closed for a week. We have makeup to do. But still, I think it's very interesting how well it shows that this system is working. Are there problems? Yes. Is it perfect? No. Will it be? Absolutely. We are going to get there. No question about it. This team is amazing. I can assure you of that. We have great support from the county clerks. They're frustrated. I get it. I understand. I would not want to be in their shoes, and I hate that they're experiencing it. But in partnering with them, I think we're going to get there. I know we'll get there. So I didn't answer any of your specific questions directly because I know that we answered those for you, but I'm happy to answer any that you may have.
All right, and thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Secretary Gray missed out, and please accept my apologies. I think I misspoke whenever I called you to the table, and I do apologize for that.
That's okay.
But if I could at this time, in the essence of time, Tabitha Clement, if you could, from the Grant County Clerk, she's also the president of the Kentucky County Clerks Association. If you could come to the table briefly, if you have anything to add to the discussion, please do so. And then we do have a couple questions for the group.
Sure. Good morning. Thank you for the invitation to speak today about the KAVIS implementation. As customers have experienced throughout the Commonwealth, there have been longer than normal waits at county clerks' offices. Overall, there have been vast improvements to the system from when it first launched the second week of January. As bugs are fixed and KAVIS's features are better understood, each day we are processing more transactions and turning away fewer customers. That is good news. Duplicative county clerks are still hitting roadblocks with KAVIS. There are still transaction types that we cannot process, such as apportion certificates, some duplicate title features, and some dealer transactions. Additionally, trailers are also an issue with processing fees. We've also encountered challenges with things that are random and unusual, which is good that we're getting to this point of it being random and unusual. It's not widespread issues. It's one-off situations. In some cases, we're simply unable to correct title issues that we might have. We've processed a title the next morning. We verify those titles and check them for accuracy in the system. We find an issue. We can't correct that issue right there on the spot. An example that I have from yesterday, I work the front line as a small county clerk. So as Heather said, she didn't want to be in our shoes. I wish I wasn't in my shoes sometimes. But yesterday I had a customer who needed to renew 2 vehicles that will expire tomorrow on the 31st. Her 2 vehicles are not past due. But a camper that was coded as a mobile home title back in the early 2000s is what is preventing me from renewing her 2 vehicles that she needs to be current on. And unlike Avis, where I could just process those vehicles individually, I can't do that in KAVIS because it's customer-centric. It's based around the customer. So it's preventing me from moving forward with her 2 vehicle transactions. The bottom line is that my customer's willing to pay any taxes that she has due. We just can't get it to work. It's been reported to KAVIS. KAVIS is responsive. They're aware of the issue, but it does take programming to correct it, and it's going to take a little bit of time. So one thing that we've asked, I know that the transportation cabinet's asked, county clerks have individually been asking at home, but for law enforcement to have some leniency right now with our customers, because there are these situations that have arose in all of our counties, frankly, that we do need people to be patient. This young lady's not trying to skate around her taxes. She wants to be a law-abiding citizen, but the system's preventing her from doing that at this moment. Given the complexities of Kentucky's vehicle regulation and registration laws, the amount of bad data created during the millions of transactions in Avis over the decades in its existence, it isn't surprising to us that these bugs exist, and it wouldn't be until we started having a customer-centric system that they would be discovered. We knew that this was going to be some of the issues that we were going to be seeing. I'm confident that the KAVIS team will continue to fix these random issues as they arise. In the meantime, we are still going to need a lot of patience from our customers. Unfortunately, one challenge to us and to the customers is that when we contact the motor vehicle licensing branch at KYTC, sometimes we're met with a recording that says, "We'll get back to you in 48 hours. Unfortunately, that's not convenient for us or our customers. And we know that the staff at MVL is working hard to address all of our concerns, because it's like there's this huge balloon of transactions we have to take care of, but they're all popping at the same time. And we know that they're trying to help us, but unfortunately, it's just the reality. We are met with this recording, and it's hard to understand when you're the customer on the other side of the counter. So we're having to try to explain that. And many of our clerks are not hearing back within that 48 hours as well. While the chat feature that is enabled in Teams that Heather spoke about is a welcomed resource for county clerks, and it's really helpful that it has a search function where if there's something specific that we're looking for, we can search it. It's just that it takes time to do that. The information that we need sometimes is not accessible right at our fingertips, and we have to search for that. One of the things that I do want to highlight that we never had with Avis, when I became a county clerk in 2015, I remember contacting motor vehicle licensing at the time. At the time, it was Paul Maurer, for those of you who've been around for a little bit. And I said, "Paul, is there a manual for Avis? How do I process transactions? I've never worked in a clerk's office. I'm new to this. I need to know." There was never a manual. There is now with KAVIS. It is very helpful, and we appreciate what the team's done with the manual. But there was more stress added onto county clerks in the sense that March is our busiest month of the year. We see all farm tags, trailer tags, campers, all of these things come due in that month. And the vendor that the state has that mails out the postcards mailed all of the March renewals early. So that has just exasperated what is happening in our offices. So not only are we seeing the folks that we didn't see for the first several weeks of January, or those who have bought cars at the end of the year and need to transfer them, now we're seeing February and March's renewals on top of it, which has created even more lines. Many county clerks are asking for our customers to wait until it's their month for us to process their transactions, because it's just too many people at the same time. As a result, all of these challenges bring forth the need to share information with the public. And that's what we've been trying to do, is to get information out to our constituents. Things that they can do to help us is to bring their driver's license or their state issued IDs to our offices to renew their vehicles and to transfer vehicles. That's something that you think everybody carries with them. Unfortunately, we have people who wait in line and they don't have those IDs when they get to the counter. So we're asking everyone to make sure that they bring their IDs with them. To have their printed proof of insurance when they come into the office. That's really helpful. The insurance law in Kentucky states that the effective date has to be within 45 days of their transaction. That creates issues sometimes when they get to the counter, so we're asking for folks to have those ready when they're there. And then their renewal notice. The postcard that you receive in the mail or your prior year's registration is required so we can find your vehicles in the system and merge them into your customer account. For the counties that we're scanning driver's license, that does go a little quicker, but for those of us who didn't get every driver's license scanned in when they came in, it does take time to merge those customers, and it slows down the amount of transactions we can process. Before I conclude, I want to take a moment to personally recognize John Eiler and the KAVIS team for their hard work, their dedication, and their continuing expertise in this field. They continue to strive to build a system that will be even more robust than what we've seen over the last 45 years, and that doesn't go unnoticed. But I have to take a moment and thank Heather, because she mentioned my text messages. I'm calling, texting, emailing Heather all hours of the day and night. She answers, and her patience, understanding, and solution-oriented attitude is unsurpassed by any state employee that I've seen. She really has dedicated her life over the last month or so to this project. And this is not her only project. Many people, including county clerks, thought this was Heather's only project for a long time, only to find out this is one of dozens. So we would be remiss if we didn't thank Heather for all the service that she's put into this project. So thank you, Heather.
Tabitha, on Heather's behalf, Mr. Chairman, I was just going to say thank you very much for that. That probably won't make the news, but we sure appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, we do have a few members that have some questions. Representative Huff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a question. I'm a car dealer, so you can imagine. But I have a truck that we sold right at the first of the year, and we waited until the time, we were allowed to come back in and transfer. Actually, had several to transfer, but they did all of them but the truck. And they said, try again next week. So we waited a week, and we sent our transfers up again, and the same truck, it won't let us transfer it. So try again next week. And we bought several cars at the auction, and the dealer assigned all of them but one, and they said, can't do it. Try again next week. I was just wondering if you had any idea why I would sporadically just randomly seem to pick certain ones not to transfer.
Was it the same truck each time?
The truck was the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, same truck.
There very easily could have been some particular data issue when we transferred it from AVIS to KAVIS that could have caused that, and those are those one-off cases that we have to work individually, which makes it take a little bit more time. But I'd be very interested if you'll give me the information on that so we can look it up and see exactly what problem you're having.
Okay. I have one more question, if I may.
Yes, you may.
When we buy a car at an auction, we buy them at an insurance auction, so they're salvage title. So we'll dealer assign it, then we'll get it inspected, apply for a title in our name. Then after we get the title in our name, like we always did, then we have to re-dealer assign it in order to not pay taxes on it. That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I wonder if there's a way to override that, or because I'm kind of double doing it.
Well, I cannot answer that question. However, Godwin or Eddie from Motor Vehicle Licensing may be able to shed some light on that. I'm unsure. Here's Eddie.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Eddie Pagan. I'm the registration branch manager at MVL. And the situation that you described, you do not need to dealer assign it when you're first bringing that salvage in, because you are going to be putting it into the name of the dealership. So you don't have to dealer assign it at that point. But when you put it into the title in the name of the dealership, you now become the owner of that vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And so as such, you would be treated like any other business. So then when you go to sell that as a dealership, that's the time when you need to dealer assign it, so that now you can be treated as a dealership.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Chairman Blanton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for your presentation on both sides here. Thank you, transportation, all your work you're putting into it and the hours. And I know that as much as our clerks are wanting this to work for them because they're standing there with the angry customers, I get it. But I also know you guys want it to work flawlessly, right? And I'm believing in you that we are going to get there. I've got a few questions. We sent out a list of questions, and thank you all for the very good response. Several of those said that resolution was hoped to be resolved by the 28th, which would have been Sunday, and one of those was apportionment tags. And I hear that maybe we're still having some issues.
Mm-hmm.
Has that been resolved, or there's still issues?
There are still issues with apportion certificates. That did not make it through our testing over the weekend, so it's been pushed to Wednesday night release. So
Okay.
this Wednesday night, we expect those apportion certificate issues to be resolved.
So those are the ones currently, if I understand right, you can do the tags, but to get a certificate, you're going to have to drive to Frankfurt right now to get them. Is that?
I don't think so. I think that's IRP, and those problems have been resolved.
Okay. Okay, very good. Next question, dealing with some of this is I guess out of your all's control, but dealing with ownership of past vehicles that you've traded off or sold, and PVA still having them. We got about 600,000 of those. It's saying that 300,000 plus by the 28th. Have we accomplished that?
We actually removed 513,000.
Awesome.
There are more. There's probably more than 600,000 actually, to be transparent with things I've learned in the past few days. That I think that has made a difference across the counties, at least from what I'm hearing. But there's still more, and those PVA issues, they're not all PVA issues. They're tax issues. There's vehicle issues associated with tax issues. So there's a combination of work that has to be done by the clerk and the PVA. For many years, Avis didn't really require those things be cleaned up. If I sold my vehicle in March, but I owed the tax from January assessment and I don't renew till August, because we weren't in a customer-centric model, I may never have come and paid that. But now when we moved all those vehicles under one single customer, now that old vehicle that I didn't realize I still owed tax on is still on my account, and now we're requiring collection. In some cases, we should be requiring collection, and we want to keep those on there. In some cases, they may be a little bit too old, and that's why we worked with DOR to come up with some rules to remove some of those things that were never cleaned up as part of Avis. But a lot of this is cleanup and getting things set up in a way that we can make sure we're collecting the right tax when we should be, and that we're requiring the processes take place to clear those out, and it's taken a little longer to do that.
Okay. Thank you for that response. And so we talk about those coming up on expiration in January. You've asked law enforcement to have some leniency, and which is good. I would also say to the judges and clerks or to the county attorneys that see those coming in to realize we're going through this. And I know it's not necessarily across all counties, but many times in general, if you had an expired tag and you got a citation, if you show you've registered, they'll dismiss that. Hopefully that will continue, especially in this situation, if someone were to get issued something. My concern is not so much within the Commonwealth, but these people are going to be traveling outside the Commonwealth, and we're not going to get that kind of latitude in some of these other states. So hopefully we can get that issue resolved quickly as well. I appreciate the patience of the clerks. Appreciate your feedback to them. Obviously, you're all the ones working firsthand with it. It's vital, as you're doing, to provide them so they can address it. And hopefully we can get these things addressed in a timely manner. It's important to all of us. It's growing pains, and growing pains hurt, right? And I appreciate all of you, and hang in there with us. I think, we will get there, not as quick as none of us want to be, but we will get there. So thank you all.
All right. Well, thank you to all of our presenters today. You have a question?
You know what? It's okay. Well, yeah, I mean,
I apologize. Representative Moser has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm sorry to interfere with your presentation because this is a little off topic. I so appreciate all of the work that you've done. This is incredible. I understand the need for this modernization. So this is a great presentation, very helpful. I have had some questions from constituents about its driver's licensing, and I'm just wondering if you can explain maybe the differences between the DMV and what you're doing here, or is this system change interfering with the ability to obtain driver's licenses quickly?
No, there is. So this vehicle titling and registration process, we work with the county clerks across all 120 counties to do titling and registration transactions, among other things. The driver's licensing is managed by KYTC. We have regional offices. They're completely two separate systems. Now, we do verify driver's license information against the driver's license system from KAVIS, but there's nothing that prevents you from getting a driver's license renewed or any functions with driver's license associated with the issues that we may be having with KAVIS.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's a line issue and wait time. So yeah. All right.
We encourage everyone to use online renewal on both systems.
Yes, that's a good reminder for us. Thank you.
All right, and again, I do have one quick question, and was just reminded: is there anything that you can think of that we would need to do legislatively, or we should in the near future before we?
I asked my team that question as well, and they said no. However, there are some conversations happening about some things that were allowed to occur in AVIS that are not allowed to occur in KAVIS, and because it wasn't by law. So we're trying to figure out, do we need to adjust the law, or do we need to do additional training? So there's still some conversations happening around that. So I would say stay tuned. And we're trying to get some questions answered as quickly as possible on those things to see if we really need to address anything, or really if it's just a procedural and training issue.
All right. Well, thank you for your presentation today. And if there are any of those changes, please let us know. We'd be happy to work with you on those. This does conclude our agenda for today. Our next meeting is next Tuesday. Do we have any other issues to come before the committee?